How are you this afternoon?
Good, yourself?
I'm good, thank you. Not too bad. It's not raining for once in the north, so can't complain.
Yeah, no, it's not raining down here either, so it's fine.
For now.
Yeah, no. Well, hopefully, yeah. I think tomorrow's supposed to rain.
Oh, well, hopefully we can keep it away for a while.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for taking the time to join me and to talk to the Dig Network about your journey and about yourself. I really do appreciate it, and I personally think you're an amazing person. So I can't wait for them to get to know you a little bit better. So I guess why don't we start with a bit more of a introduction?
So I'm Paul McFarlane. I'm a partner at a national law firm, Capsticks. I've been practicing for too many years to mention. We can get to that in due course. I specialise in employment law, advising employers predominantly on all aspects of employment law. My particular specialism in terms of employment law is industrial relations law, so strikes. Um,
So you've been
and
busy
also,
at the moment then.
yeah, you could say so. And also advising on complex discrimination and whistleblowing complaints. Um, my practice now is advising emergency services teams, so for a number of police forces and a number of fire services. Uh, but I also do work from time to time for NHS trusts, and I also do investigations. So I'm currently investigating a difficult um, discrimination complaint brought by an employee in a trust against various members of a department that they're in.
So some really complex, heavy, busy stuff there. No, wow. And I guess going back a little bit before, going back to the start, what was your route into the legal profession?
So this is going to sound strange, given that I've been doing this for more than 2 decades. I didn't want to be a lawyer. I fell into the law by
Change your mind
accident.
then.
I haven't managed to escape yet. I managed to fall into the law because I was looking for scrabbling around to find another A level apart from I was going to become an economist. So I was doing economics and maths. I was trying to think of another A level, and law was the one that I chose, and I um, ended up being better at law than economics or maths. So I defer. I deferred my well deferred a place, but I took a year out instead of going to some
Straight into uni.
university. I decided to try and change and do a law degree instead. Still with no sort of ambitions to be a lawyer at that stage. I just thought I quite enjoyed the subject, and I was better at it. So I'll do a law
Helps.
degree. I'll do a law degree and then go and do something else after that. Um, I did the law degree, and at one point I was thinking of becoming an accountant, which uh, that was never going to happen. Really, it's just so. Um, so I decided, no, I'll do it. I'll qualify, and then we'll see what happens. So it took a long time to get well, it wasn't called a training contract in those days. It was something called an article, becoming an article clerk.
Okay. Okay,
Um,
that's quite interesting.
and
Just
yeah. So that shows how ancient I am.
no,
So
no,
yeah,
just with you saying it took you a while to kind of get that. Do you think there's any
well, it took
particular reason or
I when I graduated, it took me 3 years from graduation to get what is called articles now, training contract. And I think I wrote over 400 letters, I think, and I had probably about 20 plus interviews, and out of those, probably about half a dozen were with some good top city firms, including Denton's and what is now Hogan Lovells, and what is now Mayor Brown. But anyway, it wasn't successful. And we can talk about why that was later. But I eventually got a training contract with what is now Transport for London. And yeah, and within 3 weeks of starting the training contract, I was doing what they call real estate now, what we used to call conveyancing or property in those days. But
Okay.
I was asked to go and sit in on an employment tribunal claim hearing uh, with the solicitor who was conducting the hearing as a sex discrimination complaint. And I just knew once I sat on that case that if I was going to be a lawyer, that this is what I was going to do. I wasn't going to be doing anything else. And so, yeah, I tried to qualify into employment when I finished. Didn't qualify into employment because I didn't have any employment jobs at that stage. But they agreed that I could do. I did commercial litigation for 18 months, but I was allowed to do some employment law if they had some overspill and they needed help. Um, which I did, and then somebody left the employment team, and I sort of slotted in. And I suppose the rest is history then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was quite an interesting first sort of few years. And I mean, I guess we can come back onto it later or
Mm.
talk about it now, but why do you think there were so many, I guess, barriers or struggles to secure something at that point?
Um, so, and this is not, I'm not sort of a revolutionary in all this. I, so I was the first in my family to go to university. My mum was a psychiatric nurse. My dad was a cabbie, but he was an engineer before that. So I didn't really have the networks or the contacts in terms of what was expected of me when applying for and going for these jobs.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. I think another part of it, as I've alluded to, I was not. I didn't. It wasn't my burning ambition to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
And so part of it is down to me. If I look back and being honest in terms of me being properly prepared for what it meant in terms of both the application process and also the interview process.
Yeah.
And
And
so,
I'll
so
and
I,
I'll be interesting. And what's interesting actually is that's something that even say, X amount of years down the line,
mm,
when I was coming out of uni at sort of 2016, and I was thinking about, do I go into law myself? And there was so many people who'd already done these internships and programs and training, like not
mm,
training contracts, but all these like secondment things,
mm,
and whilst they were at uni. And these weren't things that were A, you were told about, and B,
mm,
even if you did have the burning desire to be a lawyer, if you're doing a full-time degree and working to support yourself, your aim is kind of just like, let's get the best grade in the degree and then worry
mm,
about it later, right?
mm.
And
Yeah,
I think it's not often communicated, especially across law, like how much actually this additional stuff will make the difference between whether you get a job later or not.
yeah. I
So
think
that's quite interesting,
yeah,
even
yeah,
X amount
definitely,
of years later, that hasn't changed.
definitely important, and I sort of drilled that into my children. They're not children now; young. Well, they are children. They're my children, but
But still your children, yeah.
they don't want to be called children. I drilled that into them that they needed to make sure that they did these things, which they've done, so that they're in a much better place than I was when I did it. Um, but yeah, I wasn't as serious as I needed to be. One, but two, given where I was coming from, I didn't know what I needed to do in order to get a foot in the door.
Yeah.
And that was a quite a trying time trying to find a training contract. It was quite a stressful time, but we got there in the end.
Oh, well, I'm glad you got there and you're making the waves now. So definitely still there. And I guess that's quite interesting actually in terms of like, private practice. What made you move from TFL to private practice, and what's made you stay there?
Well, I didn't move from TFL to private practice. So I moved from I spent 6 years at Transport for London, as
Hmm.
is now, and then I moved to Royal Mail, and I was there for another 6 years, and I think part of the difficulty of moving was I didn't have any contacts in private practice.
Hmm.
Sorry,
No
sorry,
worries.
water.
No. Oh, thank you so much for still doing this, even though you're a bit
Yeah,
under the weather. I
yeah,
really appreciate it.
yeah. So I didn't have any contacts in private practice, and I found it quite hard to secure an alternative job. Anyway, this job
Yeah.
or this role came up at Royal Mail, and it was actually quite suited to me because um, at TFL I'd done quite a lot on industrial relations, and Royal Mail in those days there was lots of industrial relations disputes, so that was good. It was a bigger employer, much bigger employer. I think there were about 15,000 employees at TFL then, but Royal Mail had about 160,000. It was nationwide. Um,
So it
and
kind
it
of
was and it was a
volume.
yeah, it was a bigger organization. Um, and also I got to do a lot more policy stuff. So I was responsible for uh, making sure that whenever there were any employment legislation changes, that the business was ready for it, and had the policies and procedures in place so that they could comply with the relevant new legislation and knew what the new legislation was and how it would impact on it. And
Yeah.
this was the days of New Labour when there was a lot of new employment legislation. So it was probably a good time. Well, it was a good time for me to be there, um, and that was good. But then, so I did that, and then I got bored, and it sort of that that sort of crossed over with one of my ex-colleagues moving to private practice to a firm that Royal Mail had used. And about 6 months after he left, he contacted me and said, "Do I want to sort of join him at this firm that he's working at, which is called Waitman's," which I knew. So I knew some of the people there, and I knew him, and had 3 interviews actually for the job um, with them, um, and yeah, moved to private practice. And I think it was good that I moved to a place where I'd worked with somebody before, because
Okay.
that made the
Did it
transition
make it an easier?
a lot easier than it would have been had I just sort of moved cold from in-house to private practice. Because yeah, the one big thing you notice, or I noticed anyway, was when you're in-house, sort of the work is there, it's sort of just there.
Hmm.
Whereas when you're at private practice, you've got to go and, well,
Get it.
someone's got to go and get the work, and then deliver it. So it's not there immediately. So that was quite a big change. And also obviously the time recording, whilst we time record did at Royal Mail, it wasn't the same
Hmm.
as time recording.
Yeah, and I can imagine it was different cultures as well,
Yeah.
which.
um yeah, I mean, it was okay, because again, as I knew quite a number of the employment team at Waitman's. So I wasn't going it completely cold. I didn't. It's like and I was made to feel quite welcome. I had very early meetings with the managing partner and the head of employment then, and I was always made to feel very welcome. So the transition was a good
Was quite.
transition. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. And I think it's interesting actually, because that you say, you were made to feel quite welcome and that made it easier. And I
Mm.
think it's those little things, isn't it? It's just having that meeting with the MD that can
Yeah.
really make
Mm.
a difference to someone.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, now you've, obviously moved on from Waitman's, you're now at Capsticks, and you're also now at partner level. Can you tell us a little bit more about your route to becoming partner?
As a partner at Caps, sorry, I was a partner originally at Waitman.
Waitman's first, yeah.
So when when I joined Waitman's, I joined as an associate from associate then. It's all changed now, but then as an associate to partner. So when I joined, I sort of gave myself a 3-year goal to become a partner. So I applied after year two, but that really was, in hindsight, again, a bit of a nonsense application because I didn't really know what I was doing. Um, and
But
again,
if you
and
don't try, you won't succeed.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you've got to
yeah,
try
yeah, but
sometimes.
I wouldn't, as I'm saying all these things because it's not. This is not the way to do things. So I'm sort of trying to say this to make sure that people don't follow me completely in what I've done. Anyway, so
Yeah,
but
learn from my mistakes.
what 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 was what the good part of all that though was um after the application and I was rejected. The managing partner came down because the headquarters of Waitman's is in Liverpool.
Hmm.
Came down to London and he spent an hour and a half just explaining to me why I
Wow.
hadn't got through. Um, and at the end, or towards the end of that conversation, he said, "Right, I think what you need is a coach. We're doing sort of coaching for people who are aspiring to partnership or aspiring to become promoted. So, are you interested in getting coached?" And I thought, well, yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I was coached, and I'm quite happy this happened. I was coached by the HR director, and we had a series of meetings. I think a monthly meeting for 6 months, and at each of these meetings, she would sort of give me a task to do, and it was sort of I was made a sort of accountable in terms of what I needed to do.
Yeah.
She provided me with, although I had it already, the sort of criteria that they looked for in partners in terms of the application process. Um, and what she said was what you need to do during the course of, well, the 6 months and the year is whenever you've done something that fits the criteria, put it in a folder. So you've got all the evidence there. So when it comes to completing the application, you've got all the evidence there in the relevant folders. So it's not a situation where you've got 2 weeks to sort of scrabble around and try and find it. You've got it all there. You just need to just pull it out and put it in. And that was really helpful.
Yeah.
And then the other thing,
I
what
think,
one
you
of
know what? A lot of people
yeah,
don't think like that either. They're like, right, well, when I'm going up for that meeting, I'll
mm,
think back, but you never remember all those achievements. So actually doing it once a month or
you
when
got
you've
it,
achieved something,
yeah,
I bet that you couldn't even lift the folder when you'd
yeah,
finished.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, it was well. When I say electronic folders, I just put it sort of like so I had them in
on a
material there, so I
desktop.
could just yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing which she said to me, which was a small thing, but actually quite a useful thing, and I always say this to people when they're looking to get promoted, is so if you want to be a partner, you've got to sort of behave like a partner now, so that people think you're a partner. And so what she meant by that was getting my name out there, building my internal and external profile, um, so that when I go into the room for the interview, one, they already know me, those who are interviewing me, and
Yeah.
two, they already think of me as somebody who could be one of their peers. Um, and it was a small thing, but actually it was quite an important thing to say because I think you're well certainly before I became a partner, you sort of this sort of deferential view to partners, and they've got one head like we've got one head. They've got two heads, and that we're all normal people. We just need to sort of just have certain behaviour. So that was quite useful. Um, um, and so yeah, when I went for partnership the second time, I was very confident. Let's put it that way. I wouldn't say I was definitely going to get it, but
Yeah.
I felt I'd done the work, that I was in a good place to demonstrate that I should be made partner, and I was made partner, and I was there for 10 years.
Wow.
Um, and then came to Capsticks. Yeah.
Amazing. No, thank you for that. And I think what's really interesting and what's key is that actually you've said the mentoring, having someone to talk to about things on that route to partnership was quite instrumental in
Mm.
getting you there. Um, and then obviously now you are still a partner level, and you are still there. How are you, I guess, involved in supporting the current and the future legal professionals coming to the firm, coming through to the sector?
Um, so in a variety of ways, I co-chair. We've got an internal network, a race and ethnicity network, which we call Create at Capsticks. So I co-chair that. We set up last year. So about 18 months ago, the firm set up networks, one that deals with race, one that deals with well-being, one that deals with LGBTQ plus, and then this year we've set up one for gender women, and we've got an overarching what's called an EDI council that sort
Hmm.
of is the body where sort of the chairs and co-chairs of those groups, together with the managing partner and the head of talent and diversity, sit to sort of hold the firm to account in terms of what it's doing to promote and progress diversity and inclusion within the firm.
Brilliant.
Um, so,
I think that just shows you how well it's being taken and serious it's being taken when you've got, so many execs and the managing partner involved,
mm,
actually meeting on that
yeah,
regular. It's yeah,
yeah. So I sit on that. Um, uh, I think I'm quite visible within the firm in terms of people know who I am. So quite happy to talk to anybody about how they can progress their careers, um, and yeah, um, do that quite regularly. Uh, I'm also chair of the Employment Lawyers Association, which I took up
wow,
in last month, and one of my aims and objectives to improve diversity and inclusion within the employment law community. So that's one of the things I've sort of set out on one of my stalls. So uh, we're going to be running reverse mentoring for the management committee with we've got a race and ethnicity committee. So got to do some work on that. And then we're also looking to do some work around um, the briefing of barristers, and we did some work with gender. It's called equitable briefing, but looking at gender. Did that about a year or so ago, and I want to do the same exercise for race.
yeah. I think
Um,
that's
so um, in a number of ways, I think I'm trying to sort of help uh, with bringing on the next generation, because what I don't want it to be perceived or believed it's just the me show. It's not the me show at all. It's I want to try and bring people on, because if
no,
it's just
definitely.
if it's just if I'm the last, or the next black solicitor or barrister in the employment law is not a chair in the next, say, 10 to 15 years, then I think I've failed.
And do you know what? That's really like really powerful. Yeah, it was a really, really powerful statement. And I think it's really important, as you rightly are a leader and you are a role model within the sector. So I love the fact that you've kind of taken that on yourself to go, no, it's my mission, my responsibility to try and improve the next generation.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I wish everyone take a leaf, please take a leaf from Paul's book. And last question, because I appreciate, don't want to keep you all day, even though I
Mm.
could talk to you all day, Paul, to be honest. Um, but what would you, if you could go back, because hindsight it is a magical thing, what would you tell your 18-year-old self, knowing what you know now?
Um, I think well, be more serious about what career you want to do. I think that's probably
Yeah.
one. So, because yeah, so my career ambitions were actually journalism or economics, an economist. And I told you the reason why I didn't do economics, but I think I still, well, not think, I know, I wish I'd become a journalist. I think if I was much more serious about that and had the know-how and contacts, I would have sort of pursued that much more. But whatever career you're doing, I would have been much more serious about what it takes to get into those professions and what I needed to do. And I think the other thing that what I would stress more, it's not just about the qualifications, it's about the networks.
Yeah.
Start your networking as early as possible. And I wouldn't, although people now would say that I'm probably outgoing, I wouldn't describe myself as an outgoing person. I'm naturally introvert. Um, but it's so important to have quite developed networks and a wide network, because you never know when someone within your network can help you,
Yeah.
um, and vice versa. So, and you don't have to be blatant about networking in terms of, you don't, I don't adopt a scattergun approach to networking. It's sort of, I try to be quite natural about it,
Yeah.
because I'm not somebody who just likes to go in a room and talk to anybody. I find that quite hard. So I think you can be your natural self, but still have an effective network. And LinkedIn is a really good tool for getting to know people, or people getting to know you and building your own brand. So using LinkedIn is quite a good tool, and I'd suggest that as well.
Amazing. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think networking, definitely you have to do it from when you're at A level, never mind uni.
Mm.
When you're in your A level, start networking. And then also, yeah, LinkedIn, it's so powerful. You can connect with anyone, and like you said, you just never know what you might see or who might be advertising or who might be able to help. And is there any kind of in-person networking or events that you'd recommend or that you'd potentially advise people to try and see
Well,
what's there?
I'm a board director of the Black Solicitors Network, so I suggest you sign up to that if you're a Black Solicitor, um, because we have quite a number of events across the country. Particularly BSN North is very active. They have quite a number of events, so I'd suggest that people sign up to BSN North or BSN. Um, yeah, um,
Amazing.
I think
It's a good place to
that's what.
start.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, been an absolute pleasure, Paul. I think you're amazing, and I can't wait to share this with the group.
Okay, no worries. That's fine.
Thanks.
All right then. You take care then. Bye bye.